Matthew Williams here. Quick video to show you how to sort your boat out, its trailer, so it can go in the water. People say, oh yeah, but my trailer goes in the water. Yes, it does, probably, and if you're lucky it will have the right type of grease, which is this stuff. It's white grease, and I think it's got zinc in it or something, but basically here's your wheel, you know, the thing that goes round and has a tyre on it, has a bearing, and that bearing keeps it rolling. Without that bearing, the wheel will fall off and it'll be very rough running. So what you have to do is you have to take out the little, what's known as a cotter pin. You take the cotter pin out of there, so you pull that out, okay, and then this will spin, this piece here will spin off, and then when it, can't do it, oh yeah, maybe I can. When you get this off, there'll be a little metal washer behind there, and behind that will be the bearing. So I should really get my gloves on for this. Hang on. Yeah, this is a hyper messy job, so you really want to get these like proper chemical proof gloves. And yeah, you take off Mr. Washer, and you've got to get all the grease off these, so you have to wash it in a bit. So put that in a little bowl. Okay, then the wheel will just start to work its way off, and you can get the washer off, and you can get the bearings out, which can be easier said than done. So you can see loads of grease. All that sticky, horrible grease has got to come off. So then we've got the bearing, not the bearing, the wheel. So I don't think I'm going to be able to do this with a phone as is. So let's just get it off like this, and we'll just show you. So here we go, there he goes, comes off. Get the bearing out. See the bearing there, covered in a rather sort of common type of grease, and that is like soap. And if you put the boat in the water and the water comes up to the bearing bit, if the water level comes up to here, as often it will, then that will wash the grease out. And when you don't have grease on a bearing, you'll have about 50 miles of driving before the wheel will fall off. So what do? Keep taking the wheels off and keep packing in this cheap grease? No, you put in white grease, because white grease is good stuff. So what we do is get that off. Now there's another bearing on the other side, so let's get rid of some of that grease, because this is a really messy job, this one. So you take it off, and on the back you've got the back one. Now this is different because this has a rubber lip on it. As you can see, that at the back is like a little rubber lip, and that stops the water getting in. So all that's got to be cleaned off, and that's got to be cleaned off, and all the gunk from in there is got to be cleaned off, and then we will be in business. So the best way to clean it off is to have a little bowl like this, fill it with petrol, and it will dissolve all that grease. So get the most of it off with a tissue, and then just fill it up, and yeah. So but you don't want to have any residual grease at all in any of this system, because it interferes with the other type of grease. So let's clean it up. So the first thing you want to do is just get yourself a load of tissue paper. This is going to be one of your most essential items, really. There we go. And what you do is you get off the major part of the grease, just work it around, and just sort of get the large portion of the grease off, you know, just like that, okay. So just get most of that off. Use plenty of tissue paper. It's sacrificial. Look at it. Oh, I can't even pick it up, it's so sticky. Look at the amount of grease and gunk on that. So just get all that crap off, literally everything off. Now you probably want to buy yourself a spare set of bearings, or a whole wheel, not the outer wheel where the tyre goes on, just a little bit in the centre, and that's what these bearings connect to. And the reason for that is because if you do have a bearing failure, it can often cause damage to the surrounding metal. So when you put the new bearings in, they're just going to be grinding. So you're best off, if you've had a nasty incident, is just buy the whole unit. The bearings cost £10. The whole unit with bearings ready in it is £15. So it's a bit of a no-brainer, really. It depends whether or not you want to have the bearings and the unit separately. They won't come greased, by the way. If you buy a new set of bearings, there's no grease on them. They come with a little pack of the crap grease, which you don't want, and you can throw that away or use it for something else, but you don't really want that. So yeah, then you buy this this, I think it's got zinc in it, white repellent, zinc oxide with anti-corrosion additive, zinc oxide, and that is the stuff you do want. So you've got to get everything off all of this. And also there's a load of grease that they pack in there. So you've got to pack the grease in here, you've got to really work it into everything, and then look at the amount of grease that comes out of there. It's horrible. That's just grease. Oh, that's just grease. So again, just really, get all the grease out there. Look at it. Absolutely minging with grease. That's what I say, it's a very messy job, this, because you're cleaning out and just getting rid of grease after grease after grease. So we'll come back to this. Let's take these out of here, okay, and we'll do the cleaning of the main bit with petrol. So let's get rid of the grease that's in the bottom of there already, because you don't want to re-dissolve more grease into grease, because it just take longer to go. And have about 5 litres of petrol for this, so it's going to cost you a few quid to get some petrol in the tank. But you see, it's just stuck, it's just slimy old horrible stuff. When you get the petrol in there, it will dissolve quite nicely. So big old can of petrol, Now, as you can see, nice clean colour, right? But what we're going to do then is we're going to get we're going to get our stuff in here. What you see is, it will get darker as it cleans it out. So we'll just dissolve that grease away. Okay. Now, don't be afraid to do this sort of thing. Yeah, and then put some more petrol on it and run it, because as those bearings spin around, they'll basically, dissolve the grease off. So yeah, then throw this away. So yeah. New stuff. Just looking out, what's this? Some gunk in there. It's just slime. Yeah, that you can feel it's really loosening up now, because that grease was quite thick. It's quite thick and congealed. As we start to do this, it will just free it all up. There we go. So let's just clean off the excess. There we go. Get it back in and rinse it again. Just keep doing that until it's pretty much freewheeling. As you can see, it's still quite dark. What we want to do is get rid of all that dark until it's just a nice shiny. There you go. Now they start to move. Oopsie daisy. There we go. Now you can see it wants to freely spin, which is a good indication you got rid of all the grease. Okay, so I'm going to clean the rest of this stuff up and we'll see you in a minute. So now we're going to get the wheel. This is a really messy bit. We're going to get in there with some of this crap and get all the gunk out. Get all the gunk out, so you've got to get your finger right in there and start pulling out that crap. Yeah, and it's just a case of just doing it and doing it and doing it until you get it all out. There's no substitute for just going over it and over it and over it again. So you want to get as much of this stuff out as you can, and any debris, any muck that might be stuck in there from previous seizures that hasn't been properly cleaned out by people because they can't be asked to do this bit. So, and that's often a good reason to change the whole bit that goes behind these 4 nuts. You can get the whole replacement of this bit here and what's behind. You can get the whole replacement of this for 10 quid with the bearings. So let's carry on with the cleaning, both sides. I'll see you in a minute. And now you can see that basically we've cleaned as much out of that as we can, and it's on both sides. So yeah, get as much out of there as you can because you're going to pack that with grease in a minute. So let's start packing. And first, by the way, let me just get this held. We're going to pack the middle bit with grease. Then we're going to put the back bit on first, push it up against the vehicle, and we're going to pack the front side with grease. So that's packed with the grease. So that's the grease being packed fully in there now. You can see it right the way in there, all the way around. And this is where we get the back one that's got to be greased up, so we'll grease that up next. So here's our little cleaned bit. We just get a lot of grease and we put it on all around. Just keep rubbing and rubbing and rubbing until our grease starts to roll on the rollers. Okay, you just keep doing it. Sometimes it helps to put it like on a finger, just add more grease, and you know, really get as much of that packed in as you think you can. More is better. There we are. And we want to get it down into this lip here. So I want to get it in that lip, in that groove, and get grease in there as much as we can. So get the grip, get the groove, just slap it on there, slap it on. You can't have too much. You literally can't have too much. So you can see the groove, the lip around the edge is absolutely greased now to crazy amount. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show you this, but let me just see. Let me get this glove off. Right, now what we're going to do. Right, now we're going to do is we're going to get that on there, but actually I've just remembered I have not cleaned that off. Right, that's been cleaned off, but I'm going to pack some grease on there now as well. So give me a sec. So yeah, we're just getting as much grease around the back. Make sure you don't miss the bottom, and then you slide your thing on there. And for good measure, I just pack a load of it on the back as well. Like I say, you can't have too much of this stuff, so just pack it on. Absolutely pack it on. Yeah, that prevents rust. Why not? Now this is by far the most awkward bit, is getting it all back on in one piece. Right, so what you're going to do is first you've got to get the tyre up there. So let's get my gloves on, because this is a messy job, as we know. So right, so you're obviously going to have to clean the tyre later. this is going to get all over the tyre. And then you push this on, and it just goes on. It sort of sits a bit like that. So now I've got to grease up the other bits, and I've got to pack a load of grease in here. So let's do that now. So you just slop it in, absolutely pack that grease in there. Yeah, it doesn't have to be full to the brim, but you just have to have so much in there that it's eventually going to flop around and scoop out and start to do its job by working its way back into the other bearings in there. But you don't want to fill it to the top, because when you pack it on, it's got nowhere to go. So, you know, I'd say about half full. Half full is usually good, something like that. Right, so that's about ready. So we've got to do this little puppy. We've got to grease him up. So loads of grease. Now it's a bit of a sort of stiff grease once it goes on. It's actually not easy to kind of spin the thing once it's actually packed in. But yeah, that's okay though. That's what we want. Plenty of it all around. Just packing it in. Pack it in. Pack it in. Right. This is the bit. The moment of truth. Get that taper end in. So thinner end in, and push it on. So we get that on, and we push it on, and it sort of stays. Well, it sort of stays, and sometimes you can do that, yeah. But it's not going to stay until we get the nuts on. So get that on. Get a little bit of grease on the washer. Grease the washer up, yeah. Push the washer on. There's the washer. Get that washer on there. All right. Grease up the nut. Yeah, let's get a load of grease on that nut. Doesn't hurt, yeah. And then start to twist the nut on. Okay. Okay. So we're nearly there. Okay, now there's a trick to this. Is that you get your pliers and you tighten it, right, and then you feel that there's no give at all. There's no give. And what you do is, if it's done up tight like that, it's bad for the bearings. It's too much. So what you do is you've tightened it up, right, and then you just untighten it just a tad. So you tighten it up, then untighten. Okay, so you don't want a load of pressure. You just want to have a little bit. So there you go. So that should be fine. And you find the little hole that this goes through, if you can find it, wherever it is. Not always easy to find. Find the little pin, and get that pin down there. There he goes. There he goes. Right. Now they tell you not to reuse pins, but if they're not that damaged, I say you can reuse a pin a couple of times. But that's just me. The rule is don't reuse pins. So, and they're only a couple of pence, but they're a pain in the arse to have to go and get. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing here and redoing it with the same pin. I mean, I've known pins to last for years, so you know it ain't a big deal. So you push that back bit in, right, and make sure you get the pin. This pin goes through, and then you're meant to bend the metal up and down so that it blocks the motion of the spinning of the nut. Because if that nut is able to spin, if that nut can spin, it will spin itself off, and the wheel will just come off whilst you're on the road. So final thing is the big gunk tank of gunk, look, which has got loads of tissue paper in it. So I'm just getting that tissue paper out. Right, there's the gunk tank. You just bang that on there, and then you have to tap it on with a hammer usually. So you've got a copper hammer here. Make sure it goes. That's it. Now it's up to you if you want to tidy this up, clean it off or not. or if you want to leave it looking like it's been well greased, it's entirely up to you. But do clean it off the tyre. You don't want it on the tyre. I don't know if it affects the tyre, but yeah, you just don't want it on the tyre. So there we go. I think that's it. I think we're done. We are done. I'm just going to clean myself up now. And there she blows, all nicely done. And if you have a feel, you know, there's no real play in it, so it's all good. Now that can be put in the water and it won't just rinse out the grease like it would with the other stuff, so job's a good one.